Okay, tonight is John chapter 13.
Now before the feast of the Passover, when Jesus knew that his hour was come that he should depart out of this world unto the Father, having loved his own which were in the world, he loved them unto the end. And supper being ended, the devil having now put into the heart of Judas Iscariot, Simon's son, to betray him, Jesus, knowing that the Father had given all things into his hands, and that he was come from God, and went to God, he riseth from supper, and laid aside his garments, and took a towel, and girded himself. After that he poureth water into a basin, and began to wash the disciples' feet, and to wipe them with the towel wherewith he was girded.
Okay, so the timing on this now is just before the feast of the Passover. Okay, the last chapter, you remember, was Jesus was riding in on a donkey. He was arriving in town, for the Passover and the various feasts. So this is just before the feast of the Passover, and he's together with his disciples, having supper with them, right? And just so you're aware, this is what's typically referred to as the Last Supper, okay? Because it was really the last time he was going to get together with his disciples like this, his 12. Because he spent 3 years with them, and now he was together with them. They may not have realized it, or they didn't realize it, but he knew it was the last time they were going to be together. So he was going to do some things there to teach them some things while they were together for this one last time. Okay, so as he says, he knew that his hour was come, all right, and so they had supper, the supper being ended. Now notice it says the devil had put into the heart of Judas Iscariot to betray him, right, because Judas was the one who was going to be betraying him, and so it's saying that really Satan had now really entered into him to go ahead and follow through with this, right, because again, this was one of Jesus' 12, so even though there's other parts that said, they knew all along it was going to be him, and like Jesus, said, right, one of you is a devil and so forth, and John in writing said that Judas, who was from the beginning, was the devil and so forth. And, yeah, really, until this moment, I guess it really wasn't set that this is how it was going to be. So they finished having supper. So now it says Judas was now primed to betray him, which was going to happen really right after this. Okay, so but now still Jesus wanted to teach some things to the disciples while they were together. So now, in this particular instance, he said in 4, it says he rise from supper, laid aside his garments, took a towel, and now started to pour water into a basin, and one by one went and washed the feet of each of his disciples. Okay. Now, this, by itself would obviously seem unusual, right? Because it wouldn't be something like Jesus doing it, but just so you're aware, it was not unusual for people to have their feet washed when they entered into a house. Because they wore open shoes, their feet would be dirty, so they usually had like servants there who would do it. So they would have somebody who they paid or whatever was their servant, and okay, servant, come in to take care of our guest here. So that was part of the ritual, if you will, at times, all right. But to have somebody like Jesus do it to his 12, that was like, well, wait a minute, what are you doing here, all right? But obviously he has a purpose in doing that, which we'll see as we read on. But as you know, we of course have feet washing in the church, and so you see it's the basin and the towel. He's girded himself with the towel. So a lot of times when we do it here, he at least you throw a towel over your shoulder or something, or around your neck. That's kind of the same thing. Again, not that that's the most critical part of it, but that's I usually try to put it over my shoulders for that reason. It says he girded himself with the towel while he was doing it.
Then cometh he to Simon Peter, and Peter saith unto him, Lord, dost thou wash my feet? Jesus answered and said unto him, What I do thou knowest not now, but thou shalt know hereafter. Peter saith unto him, Thou shalt never wash my feet. Jesus answered him, If I wash thee not, thou hast no part with me.
Right. So as I said, he was going one by one through his 12 disciples, and he was washing their feet one by one. Right. And when they got up to Peter, Peter, who was typically the outspoken one of the 12, he says, "What are you doing? What is this? You're not the servant here. Why are you doing this?" And so as you see Jesus' answer, he said, "Well, what I'm doing, you may not understand now, but you'll get it later. Right? Eventually, you'll understand why I'm doing this. Right? But as you see Peter's response, there's no way I'm letting you wash my feet. Right? I don't want you doing that. Right? He felt funny about Jesus doing this. So he says, I'm not going to let you do it. So he says, this is not optional, right? So this is not optional, all right? If you refuse, then really you have no part with me, right? Because I'm intending to do this for all my disciples tonight. So like I said, this is not optional. I'm doing it, and this is, I'm going to teach you a lesson. And so it's important that I do this for each and every one of you in order for you to learn the lesson that I want to teach you. Because after tonight, he's not saying it now, that's why he said later on, you'll know, after tonight you'll be representing me, so I need you to be equipped and taught what you need to know in order to represent me properly. And so if you don't let me do this, then you're not fully equipped, so that's why he said you'll have no part with me if you don't let me do this too.
Simon Peter saith unto him, Lord, not my feet only, but also my hands and my head. Jesus saith to him, He that is washed needeth not save to wash his feet, but is clean every whit. And ye are clean, but not all. For he knew who should betray him, therefore said he, Ye are not all clean.
After Jesus told Peter, listen, if you don't let me wash your feet, then you have no part with me. So Peter backs up and said, by all means, with feet, head, hands, whatever, wash my whole body if you want, all right? In other words, he's willing to go along with whatever Jesus wants at this point, right? That's why he says, not my feet only, but my hands, my head, wash all of me. Okay, but Jesus said, well, that's not necessary, right? Really, just washing your feet will be sufficient to get the lesson across here, right? And partly because, that's all that was really needed, but it was also because that's what the servants typically did, and that's the lesson he's trying to teach here about being a servant to each other. So just like servants wash the feet of the people coming in, so that's why he was doing it, right? The servants didn't give people a bath, right? And so they just wash their feet, so that's why that's all that's necessary, right? And so once we do that, he says, you're clean every whit, and ye are clean, but not all, right? And then he explains in the next verse what he meant by that, because he's referring to the 12. And let me ask you a question: how many people did Jesus wash the feet of at that time? Jesus washed the feet of all 12, including Judas, who he knew was going to betray him. Right? So even though he knew he was about to go out and betray him, and that such that he would be crucified, yet he showed the same love to him and the same servanthood as to all of them. So that's why he's commenting, though, that because he knew one was going to betray him, so that's why he said you're not all clean, right? Because otherwise they would have been, but at least 11 of you are, but the 12th one is not, because he's about to go betray him.
So after he had washed their feet and had taken his garments and was set down again, he said unto them, Know ye what I have done to you? Ye call me Master and Lord, and ye say, Well, for so I am. If I then, your Lord and Master, have washed your feet, ye also ought to wash one another's feet.
All right, so after it was done, right, this is after he washed their feet and everybody was back seated at the table, right? Now he's going to explain what it's about. See, think of the little mystery that was going on while he was doing this, right? He wasn't explaining it. He said, you'll get it later, right? So they had to just basically sit there while he went one by one and wash their feet. Now, whether he prayed for them or not, it doesn't say. We pray for each other when we wash feet, but he might have prayed, whether out loud or in his mind. But at the very least, one by one, he went and washed their feet. And now, when it was done, now we're going to talk about it. Now we're going to talk about what I've done and why. In 12, he says, do you know what I've done to you? He says, you call me Master and Lord, which you should, because that's who I am. It says, so if I, your Lord and Master, says, can have washed your feet, then you ought to be able to wash one another's feet, right? So, because again, can anybody say, well, I'm too good for that, or I'm too high up for that, or I'm too important for that? He says, I'm your Lord and Master, and I did it, so therefore none of you are higher than me, or even at the same level. So therefore, if I was able to do it for you, you ought to be able to do it for one another, right? And of course, in the Church of Jesus Christ, we do the ordinance of feet washing, okay, and this is exactly what it's based on. So that 4 times a year, we set aside some time at the end of our meeting, and we do this, right? The men with the men, the women with the women, and that you pick somebody, you wash their feet, you say a prayer, and it's based on this, because it said that Jesus said, if I could do it for you, you should be able to do it for one another, right? And so we take that seriously, and we do that for one another, and so it's something that's not that not that usual in Christian churches. I mean, there are some that do it, but most do not. And then a lot of times when we tell people that we do this, they're like, wow, really, you do that? Right? But it's right there. I mean, some try to write it off and say, well, it's just symbolic, right? They should just be able to just show love for each other. Well, if you want to think it's symbolic, fine. I mean, here it says, what it says, if I wash your feet, you should be able to wash one another's feet. And so we do that.
For I have given you an example, that ye should do as I have done to you. Verily, verily, I say unto you, the servant is not greater than the Lord, neither he that is sent greater than he that sent him. If ye know these things, happy are ye if ye do them.
As you see, 15 says, I've given you an example. I've given you an example that you should do as I've done to you. So, let's say he's not saying that I just showed you something for your interest, or you just can say, wow, that's nice. I've given you an example. An example is to be followed. So if I'm going to give you an example of something, it's with the intention that you would then do what I did, right? And so that's what he said here. I gave you an example. Now you should do what I did. And so 16, as we've already been mentioning, it says, the servant is not greater than the Lord. Okay, neither is he that sent greater than he that sent him. So Jesus, of course, is the one who was sent. The Father is the one who sent him. So there is some kind of a hierarchy there. So it's understanding who's above who, and if I can wash your feet, then you should be able to wash one another's feet. And so that's why 17 says, if you know these things, or if you understand what I'm saying, then you'll be happy if you do them, right? In other words, it's one thing to know something, but it's another thing to do it. As we've talked other times about, the difference between being a hearer of the word and being a doer of the word. It's one thing to read in the Bible and say, okay, yeah, I understand what the words say and what the message is trying to get across to me, but then do I do what it says? That's a whole different question. So that's why he says here, if you know it, you'll be happy if you do it. So it's not enough to just know it, but you need to do it as well. One other thing that I'll mention is verse 15 in particular. It says that Jesus says, I've given you an example that you should do as I have done to you. Okay. Now I think we can even generalize this beyond feet washing, right? I mean, the feet washing is what it's talking about here. But I think that the idea was that Jesus was giving us example that we should do like the things that he's done. Okay, so the way that he showed love to people, the way that he gave to people, the way he allowed himself to be a servant to people. Right? So I think you can generalize it and say he's giving his whole life was an example, right? So that we can follow his example and do the kinds of things that he did for us, we should do for others as well, right? And feet washing being one of those things, right? But you can generalize it even beyond that, so that if God has done something good for you, then, I mean, we can't really do anything good back to him necessarily, so what do? We turn around and do something good for somebody else, right? So by helping and serving others, you're in essence trying to give back to God that way, right? So, I mean, Jesus gave his life on the cross for me. I can't give my life on the cross for him, all right? But I can turn around now and devote my life to helping other people, whether it's to find salvation or whatever it might be. So when you're giving to others in whatever way, you're in essence giving back to God. So I think that's also important there. It's a general example that the things that Jesus did were an example for us to do the things like he did for us that we would do for others as well.
I speak not of you all, I know whom I have chosen, but that the scripture may be fulfilled, he that eateth bread with me hath lifted up his heel against me. Now I tell you before it come, that when it is come to pass, ye may believe that I am he. Verily, verily, I say unto you, he that receiveth whomsoever I send receiveth me, and he that receiveth me receiveth him that sent me.
Now he's moving beyond the feet washing part, right? But so at 18, he says, I know who I've chosen, right? Although notice he qualifies it, I speak not of you all. So again, he's saying that I chose 12, and really only 11 are going to be able to be sent out because they're the one that's going to betray me. All right, as he says in the second half of 18, he that eats bread with me has lifted up his heel against me, and that's a way of saying that somebody who's sitting at my table who has shared meals with me and so forth is going to betray me. Right, it's going to betray me. So he's referring to Judas there. So he's the one who's going to, in essence, lift up his heel against him and so betray him. Right. Now he says, now I tell you before that happens because I want you to understand who I am and how it's going to work. Right? And in 20 it says, whoever receives the ones who I send out, which is you, is receiving me. The same way the people that receive me receive the one who sent me, which is God the Father. So it says, Jesus says, I'm here representing God the Father, and you are going to represent me. So if people receive you, it means they're receiving me, because you're going to represent me. And obviously he's giving them this speech because this is the last night they're going to be together. So up to this point, he was around letting people try to receive him, but now he's not going to be doing that anymore. So now you, who I selected, that's why I selected you, that's why I've taught you, you're going to represent me, and then who receives you is receiving me.
When Jesus had thus said, he was troubled in spirit, and testified, and said, Verily, verily, I say unto you, that one of you shall betray me. Then the disciples looked one on another, doubting of whom he spake. Now there was leaning on Jesus' bosom one of his disciples, whom Jesus loved. Simon Peter therefore beckoned to him, that he should ask who it should be of whom he spake.
Right, so in 21, Jesus makes the announcement to the table, right, and he says he was troubled in spirit and said, you know what, one of you is going to betray me, right? I mean, maybe he's hinted at it up to this point, and earlier in 18, he's saying, you know, somebody who's eating with me is going to lift up their heel against me and so forth. He's being more plain, he says, one of you is going to betray me. So not some mystical person or some mysterious person. One of you 12 sitting at this table is going to betray me. So upon hearing that, all right, you see their reactions as the disciples looked at each other saying, well, who is it? All right, and in fact, one of the other Gospels actually said that each of them questioned whether it was them. You know, they were asking Jesus, is it me? Is it me? And, you know, then they were going down the line, each of them asking, is it me? All right, so they were wondering, because I guess they couldn't imagine who around the table was going to do it, so they're looking around saying, who is it? Who's going to do it? And so you see, because it says doubting of whom he spake, so that means, you know, not knowing who he was talking about, right? So 23, they decide, okay, there's somebody who's right near Jesus, so we're going to let him ask. It says that leaning on Jesus' bosom was one of his disciples whom Jesus loved, okay? Now, so one of the 12 was right there next to Jesus, kind of maybe with his head on his chest or his shoulder or whatever, and because that's, I guess he was affectionate, so that's how much he loved him, and he, it says one of the disciples whom Jesus loved. Now, do you know which of the 12 that is? The one he's referring to is John. It says, remember it's John writing it, it says there was leaning on Jesus' bosom one of his disciples whom Jesus loved, which was himself, okay? So, or maybe he was trying to be modest and not putting his name in there, right? But that's how he referred to himself. So really, and anytime you see in the Gospel of John, there's a couple other references to the one who Jesus loved, and that's what he's talking about himself, right? He's referred to himself as the one who Jesus loved. And so since he was right there near Jesus, so it says, it says Peter, it was kind of motioned to him and said, hey, ask him who it is, all right? I guess he just made this announcement as to who, or somebody's going to betray me, but he didn't say who it was. So he says, whisper in his ear or something, and say, find out who is it, because you can't just drop that bombshell on us and then leave it at that. You got to tell us who it is now.
He then lying on Jesus' breast saith unto him, Lord, who is it? Jesus answered, He it is to whom I shall give a sop when I have dipped it. And when he had dipped the sop, he gave it to Judas Iscariot, the son of Simon. And after the sop, Satan entered into him. Then said Jesus unto him, That thou doest, do quickly.
John passes on the question. He said, hey, who is it? And so Jesus doesn't name him directly, but he said, listen, he says, whoever I give the sop to, which is basically like a piece of bread he was going to dip in some kind of a gravy or something, and so he says, I'll do that, and I'm going to give it to somebody, and that's going to be the one. Right, so it says that he did that, he dipped it, he gave it to Judas, so therefore, at least John saw who it was. I mean, he made an announcement to the whole table, but he told John, whoever I give that to, that he's the one, and so then he did, and so then John knew that Judas was the one. And it says right after that, it says Satan entered into him, and Jesus said, what you're going to do, just go and get it over with now. Go and do it quickly, so he told him to go and... to go and take care of it now, because he knew he was going to betray him, so what you're going to do, just go and get it over with now. Right.
Now no man at the table knew for what intent he spake this unto him. For some of them thought because Judas had the bag, that Jesus had said unto him, Buy those things that we have need of against the feast, or that he should give something to the poor. He then, having received the sop, went immediately out, and it was night.
No one else at the table had heard what Jesus said to John, right? But they saw him, give him the sop, and then I guess they heard him say, "That thou doest do quickly." It says, and then Judas was going to go. So the other ones, it says they thought it was for some other reason. They said, Judas had the bag. In other words, he was the money holder. So they were going to buy stuff for the feast, and he would be the one buying it. Or if they were going to give to the poor, he would be the one giving out the money. So I guess they figured he had some errand he had to do. So Jesus, go take care of what you got to do. We got to go quick. And then he got up and left. So the other ones thought, he just had some errand to do because they kind of go buy something or whatever. They didn't know that he was going out to betray him. And as we just said, it's just as well because they wouldn't have taken well to that. And, so they just thought innocently he was going out to do some kind of an errand or to buy something for the group. You see in 30 it says, right, he then having received the sop, which was Judas, went immediately out, and it was night. All right, so right, it was night. It probably was nighttime outside, but as was just said, it was also Jesus said, work for the night is coming, or the night is coming when things are going to change. Well, now it's time, all right? The time has come. Things are going to change now.
Therefore, when he was gone out, Jesus said, Now is the Son of Man glorified, and God is glorified in him. If God be glorified in him, God shall also glorify him in himself, and shall straightway glorify him. Little children, yet a little while I am with you. Ye shall seek me, and as I said unto the Jews, Whither I go, ye cannot come. So now I say to you.
So he says here in 31, he says now when Judas was gone, he says, now is the Son of Man glorified, and God is glorified in me. See, the whole plan all along was for Jesus to be crucified, right? To be the sacrifice for our sins, for our salvation. So this is part of the plan. See, so he had to be betrayed in order to be crucified. So until that happened, that the plan wasn't in place yet. Right? See, but now Judas is on his way. So Satan has entered into him. He's going to betray him. So he says, now the Son of Man is going to be glorified because he's going to be killed, which is what he came to do. So because you might wonder otherwise, how would he put himself in a position to be actually executed? Well, this is how it was happening. I mean, everything we've read already on how he got the people mad at him for doing stuff on the Sabbath and saying he was the Son of God and so forth. But now he has the betrayer is going to go basically turn him over to the authorities to be put to death. So he said, once that happens, then God wins, because that was the whole purpose of sending the Son of God to be crucified to pay for our sins and purchase our salvation. But yeah, he just points out that it's not much longer. He says it's the same way you heard me say to the Jews, where I'm going, you can't go. He says it's the same for you, right? Because I'm going to go somewhere you can't come with me now. I mean, they'll go later, but right now this is where I'm going, and so I'm going to go somewhere, and you're not coming with me right now.
A new commandment I give unto you, that ye love one another, as I have loved you, that ye also love one another. By this shall all men know that ye are my disciples, if ye have loved one to another.
All right, so this is what he's saying to his disciples. After saying that where I'm going, you can't come with me right now. So this is where he's been leading up to the whole time, saying that I'm going to be leaving, you're going to be representing me. So even the feet washing was part of teaching them something so they could properly represent him. Right now he says, a new commandment that I'm going to give you, that you love one another as I have loved you. In other words, following my example. Right? So the way that I loved you, that's the way you should love one another. And furthermore, in 35, it says, this is how people are going to know that you're my disciples, by the love you have one for another. So, in other words, it's going to be different than the way others would treat each other, and so people will know by your love who you are. And of course, if you've been around the church at all, you would have heard us mention that from time to time, right? Because it's the same today, that's how people are going to know that we're the disciples of Jesus, by the love we have one for another. So even the love, within this group one for another, but then even extending beyond this group, by the love we show to other people, is the way people will know you're different, and then you can say now you're a disciple of Jesus Christ. That's how they're going to know you, is by the love you show to others. So that's why it's important that we do that. So again, it's not optional. You say, well, I'll love people if I feel like it, or if I want to hate people, that's okay too. That's not how it works, right? He says a new commandment I give you, not a new suggestion, all right, or a new something for you to think about, all right? He says a new commandment I give you, that you love one another, because that's how people are going to know who you are.
Simon Peter said unto him, Lord, whither goest thou? Jesus answered him, Whither I go, thou canst not follow me now, but thou shalt follow me afterwards. Peter said unto him, Lord, why cannot I follow thee now? I will lay down my life for thy sake. Jesus answered him, Wilt thou lay down thy life for my sake? Verily, verily, I say unto thee, the cock shall not crow till thou hast denied me thrice.
Peter's trying to understand now what Jesus just said before this love part, right, where he said, where I'm going, you can't follow me. So Peter said, what do you mean, where you're going, I can't follow you? I'll follow you anywhere, right? And in fact, in 37, he says, why can't I follow you? I'll lay down my life for your sake. So in other words, if you're saying that it's too dangerous for me, don't worry about it. I'm willing to die for the cause. I'm willing to die for your sake. And you see what Jesus says in 38. He says, really? He says, really? Will thou lay down your life for my sake? And now he's throwing out a prophecy here. He says, verily I say unto you, the cock shall not crow until you've denied me 3 times. Which meaning that by the time you hear the cock crow tonight, 3 times you'll have told people that you don't even know who I am. All right, so that's what the prediction he's throwing out here, because Peter was being brash and saying, oh, I'll die for you, but don't worry. He says, but before the night's even over, 3 times you're going to say that you don't even know who I am. All right, so he's making that prediction right now, basically to let Peter understand that it's not that easy to just say, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this, and I can do it, because without the Holy Ghost within us, we really can't properly stand up for the Lord, which he didn't have that yet. Of our own strength, we can't do that. So you want to be sure Peter understood that. Don't be so quick to say, oh yeah, I'll do it. To watch what's going to happen tonight. 3 times you're going to tell people that you don't even know who I am.